Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life. And we're back again.
I was thinking too, I was looking at my microphone here, and we might need to get those long, like those legit ones, like the long ones that stick out from nowhere. And
I keep waiting for us to have more than 7 listeners, and then I'm like, let's do that. Let's actually invest.
Guys, we need you to subscribe. If
you could like tell a friend, like, oh, these guys are awesome. If you think we're awesome.
You know what? And I watch and I listen to podcasts. I watch YouTube channels. And I'm going to start saying it. I always get annoyed when people say it, but I'm going to start saying, hit the like and subscribe button, man. All right. Getting that out of the way.
Oh, rainy day today.
It is a rainy day. Kind of a rainy week, but not necessarily literal. We're talking a little bit more metaphorical.
You know, when it rains, it pours sometimes.
It does.
And I had a torrential thunderstorm over the last probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, you got a couple kicks in the nuts.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Came back from Boston. Someone had drilled a hole in my fuel tank on the truck. Just, I didn't even know that was a thing.
You have your truck back?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long?
Took us 2 weeks.
2 weeks to get your truck back. And you were saying, you were like, look, it's one thing for someone to go vandalize your car. It's another thing for them to drill a hole in your fuel tank. That just adds layers of complications.
I almost wish they did like broke the windows and like tried to take a stereo or, whatever. But it was like, when someone drills a hole in your fuel tank, it's like, and I'm stuck.
I mean, who does that too? Like, they must have tried to steal the gas. It's the only...
They weren't very good at it because there was so much fuel all over the parking lot. It was everywhere.
I mean, unless there's like some really evil little leprechaun running around just drilling holes in people's...
And to be fair, the SeaTac airport is not in a great part of town.
No, it's a little sketch.
It's not.
But still, like...
And I was in a secured hotel parking lot. We had stayed over. We got in late from Boston, stayed over, but...
You weren't even gone that long. You were in Boston for like a few days, weren't you?
No. It wasn't why I was in Boston. It was when I stayed the night at the hotel when we got back in. It was one night.
It's even worse. Okay, keep going though, because this isn't where it stops. This is just one little
that was one
part
thing.
Of your week.
Back. Then I hit a deer.
Not a great scenario there.
No, this is, in case you're wondering, this is not how you do it. I dropped the car that I hit the deer off at the collision center, only to pick up my other car. So I dropped one off and picked another one up. That's not how that's supposed to go.
What's going to come next week? Who knows?
Yeah.
Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not good. Then what else happened? We had talked in a past episode that I was selling a company. That transaction has 99% exploded. So I would say it's nearly a dead deal. It's not 100% dead, but
still waiting on the final answer.
I'm waiting on the final answer, but it essentially went sideways fast. And that happened. But
I will say one thing that I've noticed through this is yes, the circumstances are really crappy, but you've maintained a really good head about yourself. You've really kind of gone, I'm not going to allow this to control my week at all. Like you really owned it.
I appreciate that. I spent a lot of time specifically on the business transaction in the months leading up to it because it's totally different than selling a house. Nothing's done until it's done. Right. But it's similar in that like you're in process and you're believing you're moving in a positive direction, but until it's inked and the money's in the account.
Right.
All bets are off. And so I spent a fair bit of time over it's been 4.5 months that this transaction's been in process. And just going, okay, how do I feel if this doesn't close? How do I feel if it does close? And I had gotten myself to a place where I was okay if it didn't.
Yeah.
My hope was that it would create something new, nice little payout. But it didn't, or not likely.
But I want to make a point though. So it's really important for everyone to hear that Luke really prepared himself for both outcomes.
I did.
Internally, emotionally, he took time intentionally, and did not take any of that lightly. And I think that's a really important point of this story. preparing yourself for both scenarios and being okay with either outcome, surrendering the outcome.
Yeah.
That's something I'd say. If I were to say the greatest blessing that I've watched on your life and watched through your process is surrendering the outcome.
I mean, you guys can't really see it just because of the way the cameras are in here, but I've got it in multiple spots.
Yeah.
It's a big deal for me, surrendering the outcome. And it's an obvious one with, a transaction like this, but it's on a Post-it note here on my screen. It's on my whiteboard over there behind that camera. It's when we get attached to the outcome, and that doesn't mean that we don't have a hope that it goes one way or the other, but when we put attachment or an identity in, God, this has to go this direction, sometimes we don't know what the best move is. We think we know. And we attach ourselves to that outcome. Like, if this doesn't happen, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like,
Yeah.
the world is ending, in air quotes.
Right.
But the more life I've lived, and part of that's being 42 and have gone through a fair bit of life at this point,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't know necessarily. It reminds me of the story, and I'm not going to try and tell the story because I would not do it justice, but it reminds me of the story. I believe it's an old Japanese fable where the son breaks his leg, and or the horse breaks the leg, and son breaks the leg, and the whole town looks at the owner, and it's like, wow, that's terrible, that's awful. And he goes, maybe not. And it's this whole story about how what everybody else perceives as awful, with the right perspective, it end up turning into a blessing. And so I've just seen enough go in a direction I didn't expect that turned out okay, if not better. You don't really know.
Right. There's no
But
comparison.
It'll be all right. I wanted it to sell.
Yeah.
I wanted to close that chapter, move on. But who knows? Who knows? And I got another play to run, and we'll be okay.
It makes me wonder if a lot of people's barriers for taking that leap of faith and setting it out on their own is they're so fixed on short-term outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? Or just obsessed with, that what's going to happen next week, and how am I going to do this, and how is this going to come together? It's like, pull yourself back, right?
Yeah.
See that 30,000 foot view, what you want your life to look like, want it to be. I'm learning a lot really quickly about how much control we actually have over our long-term.
Very little.
Yeah. Yeah.
Punchline. Very little.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in order to move toward ultimately what you want to become and you want for your life, you have to put the work and the effort into that, but you have to surrender the outcome to God, collective conscience, higher intelligence, whatever you want to call it. That has to happen. If you try to control the outcomes whatsoever, you're getting in the way of God, consciousness, intelligence playing itself out and doing its part.
Yeah.
It's a duality of what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say, for lack of a better term, it's just a duality of process, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Right?
And you and I believe it's God.
Correct.
But the end result's the same, whether you believe in God or not. Like, it's an element of just allowing fate, the universe, allow it to happen, because we lose so much of the moment stressing about the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
We absolutely sacrifice the moment for something that has already happened or may not happen.
Right. That we have very little control, of any, over. It's pretty interesting.
We have so little control, and yet we try so hard to hold on tight to that control. It's just, whether you're starting a new project,
Yep.
right? And you're like, man, this is going to work. Here we go. And it falls on its face. And you had so much wrapped into the success of that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Or whether it's the exit, or whether it's a pivot. So we've talked about pivot entirely, a whole episode's on it. Like, you just have to run the play, and sometimes it goes for a touchdown, and sometimes you throw an interception.
And as Cameron, I think it's Cameron Gaines, he's a hunting expert, big time guy in the hunting world, said nobody cares, work harder. I mean, I know that sounds crass, but it's true. Meaning, we build up in our minds like we attach our identity to the outcome, and it doesn't go the way we planned. And now we're like, oh my god, what is everybody going to think about me? No one, no one cares.
Everybody's concerned about their own stuff.
Yes, and that's what it means. Not that no one's empathetic for you or nobody wants great things.
No
for
one's
you,
watching,
but no one's watching, and they're going, oh, sorry that happened, man, and they're moving on with their day. So don't get hung up in that. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know what the next step is. It's I guess I take that back. I know what the next step is.
Yep.
But I don't know that that's going to work.
And I don't know what comes after that.
And I don't know what comes after that.
Right.
And I guess I'm okay with that.
Still standing, right? I guess that's, if you're going to measure anything, measure whether or not you're still standing, right? It doesn't matter if you figured it all out or have all the answers, but if you're standing, looking around, playing the game, right? See that all over your room too. It's a game. It's all a game. We take it so personally. It's everything in our bones. It's a game. Play it like a game.
Man, if you can approach it like it's a game, everything changes.
Everything changes.
Because we all play games, and you can be super competitive and hate when you lose a game. Mm-hmm. I'm that way.
Yeah.
My whole family's that way. That's okay.
Your stress level just goes down right away. When you take all of that, lift all of that off your shoulders that you put on there, no one else did that to you. You did that. Take all of it off and realize, whoa, like I have a life and a lifestyle and responsibilities, no doubt, but this thing that I've created, like it's a game. And it should be measured like a game with metrics. Like you should know whether or not you're winning and losing. That's how much it should be gamified for you.
And I want to be clear about this. Even though I can sit here and say, yeah, intellectually, it's a game. It's hard to make that pivot.
Sure.
To make it feel like it's not life or death. Like that's an extreme, but it's not like more important than it is. To take a more, flippant's not right, but a more casual concern for the outcome off the table is not easy.
No. It's not. It takes conscious effort, but I think it's really important, and I think it matters whether or not you can continue to move forward as an entrepreneur or not. I think that's probably what sidelines a lot of people, is they just can't get there. And so it's not going to happen overnight, but make incremental improvements in your life to be able to slow down, get excited about the next step, but not be so fixed on the outcome that it paralyzes you.
Yeah.
I've been there. I'm not saying this to everybody as if like I figured it out and I'm watching everybody from the outside looking. I'm telling you, I've stumbled through all of this.
I had to remind myself multiple times over the weekend, like, it's going to be all right. Like, it's a game, man.
Yep.
You took an L.
Totally.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. The game's not over. You know, make another move.
Yeah. You have too much love and support around us, right? The hardships are going to come no matter what, because that's life. But you just can't fail, or you can't fall on your face, right? We use those as euphemisms, but the truth is we can't. No one will let us. There's no way, if you were sliding and falling and everything was coming crashing down, do you think I'm going to stand by and just watch that happen? No. I'm going to grab you, and we're going to go, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And you have like
I got good
20
nets.
of those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How does a person that maybe feels like they're going it alone, how do they navigate the stress of like, if this doesn't work, like I don't have a backup plan here?
I'm going to jump back to our previous episode and say you need to form a mastermind group immediately. You need some support and network around you. Like you've said it a million times. Like that's not only a highlight of your year, it's oxygen for your year, right? It's actually giving you real life. So I'd say to those guys, get around some people, and we've talked about being the average of the 5 people around you. Be around people you absolutely look up to and give you life and fill you up and challenge you and all those things. And so are they easy to find? No, it takes effort there too, but that's on you. They're out there, and guess what? They're wanting the same. Those people are wanting those connections just as badly as you are. So get the communications out there.
Good people want to be surrounded by good people.
Yeah. Like attracts like. Yeah. So get there. If you feel like you're all alone on an island, then that's on you. You're doing that to yourself. There's so much community out there. We're social human beings. We're social creatures. And so to, even to assume for 1 second that others are not interested in that is crazy.
Well, and you've heard it said, I've heard it said, like entrepreneurship is a lonely game, right? Almost like, oh yes, the journey of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, like no one else has gone through it.
Is so lonely, and it can be.
Sure,
it
can feel
feels that way. Mm-hmm. Like I am on an island, but like you just said, that's on you.
Yeah.
Like you have the choice. I honestly believe it. You have the choice of surrounding yourself with good people, people that want the best for you, people that want you to win, people that will help you win. Like maybe as intentional as the next idea you're pursuing, it should be this year I need to get a support group.
Yeah.
Right? I need to start building my round table of knights that we can conquer the world together. Maybe it's not for the same battle or mission. Maybe it is. But you absolutely can add those people to your.
And I think people can also like create barriers of well, I've been burned by too many people, right? I'm not gonna lean into this because too many people have screwed me over or taken advantage of me. And that, listen, I'm sorry that happened, but people are going to let you down.
Yeah.
Human beings are flawed. I've let Luke down. I'm sure there's been times other way too. And we're humans. We talk through it. We get through it. We grow through it. So don't let that be a barrier because Luke and I have both greatly benefited one another in our relationship or friendship more so than those moments. So who cares? I guess flawed. Is what I'm saying. Like we're flawed. People are going to let you down. That's why for us, we lean on God and we have faith in God because we know that. We know that's going to be true, but that's up to you and your journey. But don't let those barriers get in the way because it's really important you realize that's going to happen. Who cares? You're going to get so much more benefit out of that relationship than the flaws. You just are.
Man, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, it does. You had quite the week, man. And, from that to the deer to even your anniversary was yesterday and your wife was sick. Yeah. I mean, it was like, blah, come on. At least give me the end of the week. Yeah. Something.
Yeah.
And you're still in good spirits today, which says a lot about you.
I appreciate that. It's, sometimes so much goes sideways that you're like, you got to roll your eyes and you go, oh, okay, I guess this is
totally
what we're doing right now, and we just don't have control.
Yeah. In fact, I was watching a movie I took Liv on a little dad date to watch my oldest, To the Hill. It's a new movie with Dennis Quaid. It's actually a Christian-based movie, but he's a pastor, raising his family, moving around, getting kicked out of churches because he's trying to do the right thing and people are chewing tobacco and smoking cigarettes in the church. And anyway, so they're like moving around Texas trying to find the next spot to land. And the car runs out of gas. And of course, this is for cinema, but it just goes to show you, runs out of gas. All 4 tires pop on the side of the road. And then they sit there and they go, well, at least it's a nice day. And then thunderclouds start rolling in and just pours down rain. And he's crying and then he starts laughing. And then they start like running around and laughing and running around in the rain. And Liv looks at me and she goes, why in the heck are they laughing? And that's what I told her. I said, honestly, sweetie, sometimes things get so bad, you have to. Like you get to a point where there's nothing left to do. You can't even be more sad. You just start laughing because it's so ridiculously bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's a really important part of our DNA and how we're wired to respond to major issues and tragedy, that we can find a spirit in it, right? We can get through it. Adaptability in the human spirit to me is the most resilient and coolest thing about who we are.
Tell the story. You were just in Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
And if you want to expound on that, go for it. But I want you to tell the story of what Wells said to you, because it feels loosely connected.
Yeah.
When you were lost and frustrated.
Totally.
It feels like that is part of it.
Yeah. So I was following my uncle to go to my other uncle's house, and he had taken a left, and I just got lost. I didn't know where he turned. He turned before I could see him. So I pulled off, going the other direction. I was all frustrated and just, hemming and hawing and just upset. And Wells looked up at me and goes, this is not your fault, right? Which was really intuitive. And for me, I don't know, it's almost like healing.
Yeah.
In a way. Like, here I am feeling like all this pressure, all this weight, all this responsibility, but yet this little voice next to me just intuitively reminds me that, man, I don't know, just don't take this so seriously, right? Like, everything's going to be okay.
We blame ourselves.
A lot.
And sometimes it is our fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to accept the consequences of our actions. That is part of life as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you hit a deer and you didn't even have the chance to hit your brakes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't your fault.
Yep.
And what's interesting is I pulled off to the side of the road after I was taking the kids to school that morning. Talk about traumatizing for your kids.
I didn't realize they were in the car.
Yeah, they were in the car.
Oh, man.
And so I pulled off because it ripped part of the bumper off, and I was dragging the bumper, and I was like, anyways, I had to pull off and figure out if I was still drivable. So I pull off in this driveway that was there, and the lady that owned the house came out, and I got the kids transferred to Holly so that they could get to school, and she was helping me. She being the house owner that I pulled off in there was helping me. I needed to cut part of the bumper off so that I could get the car back. And as I was leaving, she goes, hey, be kind to yourself today.
Oh, that was a nice thing for her to say.
And it was similar. Like, this isn't your fault.
Yeah, like, it's going to be all right.
It's all right.
Because I'm sure you have still maybe even carried that weight of, like, what happened. And you're like, but why am I feeling that weight? Like, I didn't do that. I didn't jump out. I didn't send that deer out in front of me.
Yeah.
But still, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's a sticky feeling.
Yeah. Surrendering the outcome means you let go of the responsibility.
Yeah.
Of the win or the loss. Now, that's kind of a weird, there's like a juxtaposition to that though too, because also it almost sounds like you're not taking any responsibility either of what happens. But what I mean by that is the only thing that you can control is your effort.
Yes.
The only thing, in fact, one of the things that Holly and I try to do a lot with our kids is reward the effort, not the outcome. I want my kids to understand that working hard towards a goal is the only thing that you really have control over.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to hit it, and sometimes you're not. And I don't want them, this is something I wish I'd have learned earlier because it's been a massive focus for me over the last decade. I don't want them to be wrapped up with failure. It's not failure if you missed it.
Right.
And failure has such a negative connotation of like, oh man, this failed, this didn't go that way. Like, it becomes an identity if you're not careful.
Sure.
Versus the most successful people I know have absolutely failed more than I have. And in a much bigger way.
But wouldn't you argue too that those particular individuals, including you, don't live in the past? That's the big one. So failure is attached to past. Like there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
And then people, when they identify with failure, then they cling to the past and they can't let go of the past, and you just can't ever effort forward. You just keep taking that step backward. So just be careful of that.
Yeah, it's sounds almost kind of Pollyanna, but you almost have to be excited about failure. Like
Gary Vee is. We talk about that.
Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive, like to be excited about something that you were hoping for not coming through, not following through.
Right.
And I think it's okay to have disappointment, right? Dang, I really wanted that business transaction to go through.
Right.
Is it a failure that it didn't?
No.
No. Would some view it as such? Absolutely. It's just a
Bump in the road.
it's
Really
just
is.
part of it.
Yeah.
It's just part of the process. And we mentioned a game, but we've all played games where you make a move. Chess is an example of an easy one. You make a move and you were playing an opponent that saw it a little bit differently than you, and they took your rook.
And by the way, you originally thought that was a really good move too, right?
Right.
Like you felt great about it and then didn't.
Yeah.
So that happened. That's life right there. That's a great metaphor. Chess is a great metaphor for life in so many ways.
Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
And look for, what do I take from this?
Yeah.
With the John Maxwell wrote a kid's book. Great book. I don't know if you guys have it in your family. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Ooh, that's a great kid's book. I love that. And that's true.
The L is learn. It's not loss.
Yep.
It's okay. I made the best decision I could with the information that I had available, and it didn't turn out the way I expected it to. One, why? Should I have made different moves in the process? Sometimes the answer will be yes. Oh, okay. I won't do that again. And sometimes the answer is, no, you just got unlucky.
Let me ask you the question in real time then. Is there something through this process that you've learned? Like, have you thought, man, based on what came right at the end, have you thought, okay, there's got to be a system in place to prevent this from happening again?
Nope.
Not yet?
Nope. And it's fresh.
Yeah.
This is a Monday. The deal collapsed on Friday. We had a busy weekend. We spent time with you guys.
Yep.
We had a great party Friday night.
That was a great party. That turned out wonderful. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Did it. Everyone did. Everyone chipped in to make it great.
Thanks for
awesome.
that. That was good. And then Holly was sick over the weekend. I have taken some time to process it. Mainly, I processed it in advance. What if it doesn't happen? So I've spent a lot of time processing it. And, were there things I could have done differently? Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Maybe it could have derived a different outcome.
Would it have changed the outcome, though?
I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe not.
Probably not.
But that's part of it. Surrendering the outcome, you take what you can from it. If there's something to learn, to change, you accept it. Be disappointed.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Yeah. In fact, I read something recently. It said, while you're sitting over there doubting yourself, there are tons of people looking in wondering how you do it so effortlessly. Give yourself more credit. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we really dig in and beat ourselves up and wonder what everyone else is thinking, but there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like, here we are just questioning every single move we make, and everyone else is looking in going, man, you're crushing it.
Yeah.
Or whatever else. I'm not saying everyone. There's a lot of people
Yeah.
close to us that are like, we know the truth.
Yeah.
But whatever. But I mean, I think it's important to check into that too, and not, surrendering the outcome kind of in a way is not taking everything so seriously, right?
Yeah.
Really gamifying things in a way that, has you understand that your entire livelihood is not hinging on this one thing. It's just not,
Yeah.
right? Like this one business decision, this one new hire, this one new fire, whatever it might be, it's not going to bring everything crashing down.
And you have to constantly, I have to constantly remind myself of that.
Yeah.
Because I can get wrapped up in this is it. This is going to crush. This person that I hired is going to crush.
And they do okay.
No. They are average. No, actually, I need to fire them.
Well, and another example too is like just even how we like purchase things like gear. Dude, I will spend, you spend a lot longer, but I'll spend, let's say, a week researching an item that's $500, and I'm stewing over whether or not I should spend this $500. Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? Is this blah, blah, blah. And those decisions do not impact my bottom line ever.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? In the moment, it feels so heavy, so big, but then you look back and you're like, that didn't impact us financially at all. Like, why did I spend so much time taking that so seriously? You know? So there's a balance there for sure.
You realize this isn't your fault.
Yep.
You got to just, what good does it do you to dwell on it?
I mean, most would say it doesn't do any good. In fact, that downward spiral, and I'm also learning very quickly too that your thoughts control your emotions, and your emotions can control your thoughts. And I'm not talking about on a philosophical level. I mean on a scientific, anatomical level. They are now finding with neuroscience that thoughts control emotions, and emotions control thoughts.
Yeah, there's a psychological transition method called the Sedona method.
Oh, you did teach me about this.
Yeah, I think I talked about it in an earlier podcast.
But it
too.
doesn't matter. Bring it back up.
It applies right
Yes.
now. And the first step of it is, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing right now? And it usually has to do with negative emotion. Like, let's label it. Let's get it out there. The next question you ask yourself is, are you ready to let it go? And that is a gut check, because it implies all of a sudden that you have the choice. And we live in a space of disappointment, discouragement, frustration longer than we should. So if you're feeling that, admit it, recognize it, be aware of it, but then ask yourself, am I ready to let this go?
Yeah.
And the third piece of it is, if so, when are you going to do that? We drag it around like a ball and chain, or like we have something to prove to those around us, like, God, you know how disappointed I am right now. You need to know how disappointed. Like, this was terrible. Like, and it's almost like this badge of honor of how wronged we were, or how unlucky we got. Or
Man, I do that. Yep.
We all do that. Like, we want someone to empathize with us.
Sure. Just
to
be
sympathize
validated in
with
our
us.
feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we drag it around trying to get support and make people like, oh yeah, that's terrible. Oh, that's awful. That's terrible. It is. But at some point, you have to decide that you're ready to let it go, because if you don't, you'll never move on.
Well, and we just know that all those things turn into resentments, cancers, bitterness, all those things. And not physical cancer, but
sometimes
know what I mean? Emotion, sure.
I mean,
maybe.
I don't know that it turns into cancer, but absolutely, negative emotion can manifest physically.
Oh yeah, I've experienced it myself. I want to remind everyone too. I think I've brought this up before, but this is big in the world of addiction. But just the term HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That anybody can use that. It's not just an addiction thing. And what that is those are the four main triggers that we all experience that put us into a negative space, or at least get us into a bit of a funk. And so just check into that, right? If you're feeling those emotions,
I'm hungry right now.
If you're if you're hungry, angry about something else, lonely or tired, you need to pay attention to that and slow down a little bit, especially with anger. This is something that keeps coming up. Left and right, I'm noticing it everywhere, that in real estate, it's an emotional roller coaster for a lot of people. It's a lot of money, a big life change, those sorts of things. But I'm noticing that people are kind of lashing out in weird, odd ways that are not really predictable or warranted at all.
Interesting.
So I remind myself in those moments that something else is going on here, right? So I say, pay attention to your anger, because you might be taking it out on people that don't deserve it, right? You might not even see it or feel it in the moment, but you need to take care of that. Everyone does, myself included, right? If you're feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you got to address it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're dealing with addiction, or you're trying to lose weight, or you're, trying to make a business decision. If one of those things are happening, you're likely to make a decision that you wish you wouldn't have.
It'll affect your decision-making skills for sure. Yep. Your judgment gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So let's pivot. So life happens.
Yep.
Right? Things go sideways. luck does play a factor. And in fact, I'd like to do an episode on luck one of these days. I think it is relevant. And sometimes you get unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make a change. How do you know what the next move is?
And then I'll answer that, but also how much can your skill set overshadow unlucky situations too, right?
Sure.
Like sometimes you just get unlucky and your skills can just push through it and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep going anyway. But you're right. Sometimes at some point you realize like, and I think for me, it's less about lucky or unlucky. It's more about fulfillment, right? Whether or not I'm going to pivot and make a direction change in my life. It's more or less about that, like emotional and intrinsic fulfillment. But yeah, sometimes circumstances can disalign so badly that you're like, what am I doing? Like, why am I still chasing this freaking butterfly that doesn't exist, you know? And
we had talked about earlier episodes earlier this summer, like you were going to do a whole thing at the farmer's market.
Right.
And we never got back to that because it kind of exploded and we went off on different topics, but
I can cover that if you want.
It was a bit unlucky.
It was. And now again, back to my previous statement is I think I probably could have really figured out a way. I think if I really wanted to sacrifice an additional 2 hours those days, I could drive to Wenatchee, do what I needed to do, make it back. So to get very specific, I could have made it happen. But for me, my priority for this entire event was fun.
Yeah.
It should be really fun and exciting and light. And
all of a sudden it wasn't aligned to your why.
Right, exactly. My why all of a sudden got really, shady and fuzzy, and I just thought, no, it just isn't making sense. And for what it was the health district would not allow me to not cook in a commercial kitchen for the food I was preparing for the event. However, I couldn't. But they would let me cook on site. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me be on site early enough to be able to smoke meat the way I do.
We're talking about smoking meat. That's a
10-hour deal.
Yeah.
So, and so I'd have to start early in the morning. They said, sorry, you cannot be on site that early. I was just stuck in a predicament of like, all right, this is starting to become really cumbersome. I was hopeful that I could just bring my stuff down, serve it, and not be that big of a deal. But the health district, and once the government gets involved, you got to play that game.
You do.
I'm going to be very careful about what I say right now. But don't get me wrong. Public health is important. I'm not going to sit here and be like, make a case that
sure,
public health isn't important. People need to be checking on who's slinging food out to the public and not getting everyone sick. So I can appreciate it. It just didn't make sense for me in the moment. So,
yeah.
But that's the quick answer. But the reason I pivoted from that and I started throwing,
started doing events
around new ideas. So then I was like, well, then I'll just throw it out there. Hey, I'll cook for events. And of course, Tyson and Haley's event really gave me an opportunity big wedding one, 130 people.
Yeah. Fun
deal. So I'm cooking on the 7th of October for, it'll be for about 70 people. We're going to do hot dogs for kids just to save money. And then, I'm cooking on the 28th for a birthday. And then I didn't tell you this. I don't think I've told you this. I'm really excited, but, only because this is an outside coming in request, fellow realtor, colleague Steve Craig, he just asked me to cook for his daughter's wedding rehearsal in June.
Fun.
And so, which is a little surprising because he hasn't tasted my food. So I texted back. I was like, how about you come over for dinner and we can make sure you like it.
Dude, that's because the word's out.
Oh man, I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Legit.
And so I'm hopeful that that more of that stuff happens. And then I have this other idea I was going to talk to you more about too, that I'm wanting to build off of the meat smoking clinic that I'm going to be putting on November 5th, just for a handful of buddies. Hopeful to get it up to about 10 to 15 guys. I've got about 8 so far that have said yes, which I'm pretty excited about. Want to get a few more, but that I'm going to film. I'm going to do some filming of that and try to turn that into a little bit more. See if I can take that and spin that into a little business venture. I'm going to try to create some deliverables with it so that you guys have some take-home stuff with you. I'm assuming Luke's coming.
I don't have a smoker, but I'll be there to eat the meat for sure.
But anyway, no, my hope is that everyone walks away feeling like they got 10x value than they put in. So we'll see where that goes. I'll learn from that process and see if I can turn that into something more.
And maybe not, but maybe none of that would have happened if you'd have had a summer where you were doing farmer's market, because it would have gone a totally different direction.
Right.
So surrendering the outcome means it might be okay and it might even be better
Right.
if it doesn't go the way you think it has to go.
Right.
And sometimes the next step is just simply you don't have all the information.
Mm-hmm.
None of us do. And all we can do is what's the next this is my process. What's the next right and obvious step? If it's not obvious, it's not right.
Right.
What's the next right step? I don't have to know what the second or third or fourth step is. You know, there's so much pressure when people start businesses to write a business plan. And I think it's a good exercise. Like,
But how many times you've written? I've only written a few, and within a month, I'm scrapping it and or rewriting half of it. I'm like, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go at all.
it never goes according to plan,
Yeah.
ever. And I've never actually written a business plan, like sat down and
I don't blame-
written
I don't
it
blame
out.
you.
Like, that doesn't mean that I haven't thought through, like, okay, what are the big pieces of like product acquisition, markups, marketing channels, who's my buyer, what's my path to scale? Like, that's a business plan anyways.
But you've also been a bootstrapper.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to get investors,
You have to
loans,
have-
things
you have
like
to
that,
paint the
you
vision.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
It's all been on me, knowing I'll figure it out on the fly. And if I was bringing someone along or someone that I was wanting to partner with or needing money, they got to have a plan.
Yeah.
They got to see that
Sure.
you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's totally fair. But it just doesn't go according to plan. And the next step, until you arrive at that moment when it's time to make it, sometimes you don't even see it.
And by the way, like the best business stories are stories of turbulence and stories of a lot of headaches and hiccups. Like no one cares about a business story. You're like, yeah, I wrote a great business plan and it's just taken off and it's great.
Yeah,
And I'm
I mean,
killing it.
you ever
I'm
been
like,
at a business
Really?
at a social party, a social engagement, and you're around the guy? It's like, yeah, I thought up this idea. It's crushing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's
next?
unmotivating.
Yeah,
Like-
looks like the guys go through what I'm going through, man.
Man, like, I want to hear about the guy that the car broke down in the mud and you had to push it and the wheels all fell off at the same time and you found more people and you picked the car up and moved it to like, that's what inspires people.
Steve Jobs was in a garage for what, 2 years, 3 years?
It's just hard to feel that way when you're in the midst of
Yeah.
digging your car out of the mud. You know, it's like,
Or getting your fuel tank.
yeah,
repaired.
this sucks. I hate this.
Yeah.
You know, but that's
Keep pressing forward. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've thought about just calling it, right?
Yeah.
It's not the outcome I thought it was going to be. This isn't what I wanted. I'm out. And yet the human spirit, I guess I say that because anytime you meet a hiccup, failure, whatever you want to label it as, don't label it as failure, but you will adapt.
yeah.
That is the truth about our human spirit. You will adapt. It's not a matter of, oh, I hope I do, or I hope I'm resilient. You are. If you look at our evolution over the last, 300 millennia, we have. We continue to do so. You will adapt from this outcome. You will.
Yeah.
Every time.
Isn't it the Marines that say adapt and overcome? Forgive me if that's not the Marines. But it's one of the branches of the military for sure. One of their mottos is adapt and overcome.
And don't get me wrong, it sounds great, but it's not just a wishful thought. It's who we are. It's in all of our DNA. We have the grit. We have the ability to adapt and overcome everything in our lives. If you don't believe any of that, look back on your own past.
Yeah.
All of us, dude.
Yeah.
We've all overcome major challenges. Major, not minor, major challenges.
Yep. Oh man. It's been a week.
It has been a week, but you're still smiling, which says a lot.
Yeah.
It says a lot about your human spirit. And I'd argue you wouldn't
Today.
have this disposition.
I'm smiling today.
Yeah. And thanks to John. That's such a great life lesson. How are you feeling today? How are you doing today? But anyway, just I want everyone to know that no matter what the outcome is, if you truly want, let me finish with this. I'll close with this. What I shared with you from that book is your higher conscience does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being.
Dude,
That one-
I mean, I got tingles when you said it then, and I just got tingles when you said it now.
It's real, man.
Man, that lands hard.
Yeah. Yep. So write it down. Live that out. And I am going to, and I believe good things will come from that. I do.
Love it. Thanks for chatting me through all this. It's, maybe next week we'll be more enthusiastic.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been on a few like, but
I'm sure we will.
Sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah. Sometimes there's just a season. So we'll get there.
All right.
We will.
Next step.
All right. We out. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few golden nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.